hardest hitter to approach? I mean, I know there's a saying where Maddox said Bonds was the easiest hitter to pitch against because if anything ever mattered, just walk him.
Right. He's greatest hitter I've ever seen. Will Clark was another one. In the clutch, Will Clark was as great a hitter as I've ever seen. Barry Bonds was, I mean, early in his career with Pittsburgh, we got him out, and we got him out down and away a lot, and when we got away with a few pitches too. When I look back on the playoff game in Pittsburgh, but in San Francisco, there was a coach there that I played ball with in AAA. His name was Tommy Sant, and he was the first base coach in Pittsburgh. Then Bonds left, went to San Francisco. So we were in Pittsburgh. I said, "Hey, Tommy," I said, "tell me a little bit about Bonds." I said, "God almighty, nobody's getting him out anymore." He said, "Well, Leo," he says, "when you go in to play him in San Francisco, check out his batting average and his power numbers." He said, if his batting average is down, he's going to shoot you to left center. If his power numbers are down, he's going to turn and burn. And I went, "He's that good, huh?" He goes, "Yep, he's that good." So we would go over a meeting in San Francisco, and they'd say, "Well, how are you going to pitch Bonds?" I said, "We're going to get the first two guys out that hit in front of him, so we don't have to worry about it." And with nobody on, we pitched to him. Anytime after the sixth, if he was the winning run, the tying or winning run, we didn't. That's how good he was. That's the only hitter that we ever did that with.
What is your take on what happened in the game during the 90s in the steroid era?
Well, I mean, we pitched in that era. How about that's how great our pitching was?
Right. That's kind of where I wanted to go with that.
That's the way I look at it. And here's the thing. When rules are in place, then you don't break the rules. All right. Was there rules in place for steroids when all that stuff started? No. Now there's rules. Okay. Were there rules in place for cheating and technology like that with the cheating scandals last year? No. Now there's rules in place. Okay. So when there's rules in place, then it's wrong. If there's no rules, make the rules before it happens. But
right.
You know what I mean? So if there's no rules, but if there are rules, then it's wrong.
I remember Maddox saying something about the one rule that was in the clubhouse always, or that they preached to you, was no betting in baseball, which is why he drew a line between Pete Rose and Barry Bonds, because they never told you don't do steroids. They never told you don't do all this stuff. But the one rule was no gambling. Well,
that was on a wall in every game of baseball from the time I signed out of high school and went to my first minor league clubhouse. And I never saw a clubhouse that didn't have that up. So,
Well,
but you know what I hope though? I hope they let Pete in. And he's done it. He served his time and all that sort of thing. And I got to know him a little bit, and he's always was very complimentary to me. And I think now it's time, he's been punished enough. I think they should let him in.
What do you think of all the whole cheating scandal in baseball right now? I mean, hasn't everybody always been trying to pick up signs and steal signs?
Yeah, but this is taking it to a whole new level. Now, this technology is taking it to a whole new level. We had fun with it years ago, trying to pick up signs, watching the third base coach to see if he broke his rhythm, if something was on. It isn't exactly what he gave. It was a third base coach has a rhythm, and sometimes third base coaches, once something was on, they would slow that sign down a little bit, whereas going, and you could pick up a rhythm. Or, at second base, you're always looking for location, those types of things. But, that was about it. I mean, rumor has it that when we were playing the Twins in the Metrodome, when we were hitting, the flags were blowing in from the air conditioner, and then when they were hitting, they were straight down. And we saw the game in replay in '91, and by damn, we were hitting, it was blowing in a little bit, and then it was straight down.
No way.
I mean, but those things, that was, that's baseball. I mean, but this other stuff, technology and stealing the signs, and somebody hired us, in the clubhouse watching. I don't like that. I think that's too much, and I don't think that needs to be a part of the game. And I think they've addressed it, and I think you ain't going to see it no more.
Barry Bonds is a Hall of Famer, right? I mean,
No question. So is Roger Clemens. There's another pitcher that he was awesome.
now I was thinking Pedro was a pitcher that I would have given anything to.
Awesome. Awesome. I mean, and smart. There's one thing, you talk to people like the guys I'm talking about that went in the Hall of Famer. I used to go to Don Sutton. One time Avery was having trouble and I wasn't getting through. So I asked Don Sutton to come down to the bullpen with me and watch Avery with his side sessions and see if he saw anything that I didn't. And he goes, "You want me to come down there?" I said, "Well, you won 300 and some games. Yeah." And he was tickled to death to be able to do that. I said, "Why not take advantage of the tools that you have available to you?" And I had Jim Palmer do the same thing in Baltimore. Matter of fact, I had Jim Palmer spy for me when we were playing the Orioles and I was working with Kevin Millwood in the bullpen. There's another great story. Kevin Millwood. I mean, good young pitcher, had a great career, pitched a long time. Kent Merker, 17 years. Mike Stanton, 17 years. On all these guys, you know what? Kent Merker in 1994 he was his very first start. It was in L.A. He was the fifth man in the rotation. So now he has to start in L.A. He's got a no-hitter after 6 in L.A. He comes in and goes, "I'm getting a little tired." I said, "What the hell's wrong with you? Look up on the scoreboard." Look up on the scoreboard. He goes, "Oh." I said, "Yeah, oh." He goes, "I ain't tired no more." He went 9 innings, threw his no-hitter, threw 129, 130 pitches. And his very first start of the year. He only pitched 17 years after that.
He was part of like a 5-man no-hitter later in his career, wasn't he?
Yeah. Yeah. He was a guy, I used to have a saying with the pitchers, you give up 4 solo home runs in a game, and you're still going to go 9. Merker had given up 3 after 6 innings. He says, "I think I'm taking your theory a little too far." And I said, "No, you got 1 more left."
Yeah. Kaleb, J.C. Bradbury wrote a book, and in there was a section about Leo Mazzone, and it really provided almost the scientific evidence that Leo's methods worked across the board. It wasn't just about having great pitchers.
Right.
What if you take away those big 3, and if you've noticed, Leo, I've made a conscious effort not to say any of those names today. If you take away those guys, what Kaleb makes him the greatest pitching coach of all time?
Well, I mean, obviously he's talked a lot about some of these other guys with, Merker and Avery and all these guys that have had success, guys that didn't have success at places they came from and didn't have success with Leo. I mean, the biggest thing, and Leo's already said it, is just the health. I mean, in a world where, listen, today it's 2020. Everybody asks a question about Tommy John surgeries and labrum surgeries. In 2050, everybody's going to be asking the same questions. And they were asking them in 1992, and Leo's stuff works. It keeps your guys healthy. I mean, to me, that's the most important thing. You can't win, you can't develop, you can't coach if your guys can't throw. And so to me, that's just, it's the most important thing. It's, in my mind, what drew me to him initially. Obviously I knew who he was because of all the success he had in correlation with those 3 guys. But at the same time, when I met Leo, I was very frustrated with, I'd only been coaching for maybe 5 years, but hadn't had a ton of success. Guys are getting hurt left and right. Just very frustrated at the way the game was going, very frustrated at the way my career was going. And being able to talk with Leo and say, "Listen, this guy's, all his knowledge and it's not too far away from where I'm thinking. It's just, I got to be able to incorporate it and be able to coach it the right way, and controlling the effort and getting the guys on the mound and forcing them to control the effort." And there's times when I've had to just kick guys off their session because they don't control the effort. But stuff like that is just, to me, it's a no-brainer. Being able to keep your guys healthy, man, it's just that, in college baseball, you only have 11.7 scholarships if you're fully funded. And only 27 of those guys are going to be on scholarship if you're putting all 27 on scholarship. So you're having to split hairs and bring in who you can bring in. I mean, you can't afford to have your top 3 or 4 guys not play for you. And so at this level, to be able to say, all right, well, I think I've got a leg up on everybody in the country, keeping my top three. Now, my top three might not match up with your top three, but if your top three, if only half of them are playing, then I'll take my three guys, you know? And so for me, I just think that gives me a leg up.
The big takeaway I'm getting from this, and this is a credit to you, Kaleb, and a credit to you, Leo, is the ability to listen not only to your players, but listen to other people who have done it, and not think that you have too big an ego to think you have all the answers, but instead to bring in the best. I mean, to take advice from Don Sutton, to take advice from Jim Palmer, Kaleb taking advice from Leo. I think too many coaches are full with pride. They want to think they did it themselves. Too many players want to do it themselves. And that's my takeaway from this, is that to be successful, sometimes you have to listen instead of talk.
No question. And here's the thing too. I've been around where I've worked, talked to a group of pitchers, and the pitching coach was there, and I got done my spoo, and it was asking and asked questions and everything. And then when I was walking away, the coach didn't think I heard him. You know what he said? He said, "Okay, we heard what he had to say. Now we're going to go do it our way." And I couldn't believe it. I didn't say nothing. I just left. I thought you're a clown. You're a clown. And the other thing is, what all the pitchers used to tell me when they were, they always said thanks for one thing, and I kept hearing this all the time. They would say, "Thank you for simplifying the game for me. Thank you for simplifying the game." And that's and that's what I've been trying to. All that information I give Kaleb is simplifying the game, not making it so difficult. And because if you do this, the normal things that we talk about on this program, that's about as simple as you can get, but executing that simplicity is a little different. But what's Kaleb, right? You can't execute the simplicity if you can't get on the mound and throw.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our big thing here is, first of all, Coach Harker, our head coach, he's a pitching guy. I mean, pitching. Right. Charleston was drafted by the Phillies, was the first ever junior drafted out of college of Charleston. And so when he got the head job and interviewed me, he was like, "Man, I don't know what else to do. I'm still working with pitchers." And I said, "Hark, I mean, I want you to. I don't really care if we got this guy and he throws 100 innings with a 3 ERA, if he did that because of me or because of you or because, Joe Schmo came down and said something to him that clicked. I don't care. At the end of the day, our number one goal is the development of the name on the back of the jersey and not the one on the front. And if I can get information from anybody that helps my guys, that, that's what we're going to do. And so, getting on the mound and being able to go to work with these guys, I mean, that's by far and away, the biggest thing that we can do, and is one of the biggest things that I've taken away from Leo. And he, his resources have been unbelievable.
Leo, if you were a journalist and you got to interview Leo Mazzone, okay, what's a question maybe that people or you're not asked about much that you feel like, hey, I could really give you a story or give you an education in this area?
Wow, I think we're doing it right now.
That's it, really?
Yeah, I think we're doing it right now. I mean, everybody want to know why I rocked all the time, but that's just something I did when I was a kid in the high chair. Beating my back of my head up against the wall, and that explains a lot.
I think that's a compliment, Rob. I think we got a compliment.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we're talking about it right now. So I mean, there's not one specific thing. It's I think a lot of people don't realize I spent 24 years in the minor leagues, and then I had 18 in the big leagues, and ended up pitching in Mexico and coaching every league you can possibly coach in, pitching all the way up through AAA, and getting close to the big leagues. There just wasn't no room with the Oakland A's at that time during their World Championship years. I couldn't break that staff. And they said, how can you stand being in the minor leagues 24 years? How could you do that? You know how I could do it? Because I loved it. I loved every minute of it. I coached with as much passion to the kids in A ball as I did in the big leagues. Nothing changed from A ball to the 7th game of the World Series in my consistency, in my approach, except I got smarter. But my consistency, my approach is the same.
Do you think the quality of the game today is better or worse than it was in the 90s, 80s, 90s?
I don't think it's as good. because there's two things now that baseball is going to: how hard you can throw it and how far you can hit it, and that's it. You know, my biggest thrill now in the game is when I see somebody like Freddie Freeman take advantage of the shift and hit a base hit to left. I asked the minor league hitting coach one time. I said, "How come nobody hits the opposite way on a shift?" I said, "The whole left side's open. I don't understand that." I said, "Don't you?" And he goes, "Well, in the minor leagues, we're told not to do that because we don't want to mess with his swing." I said, "In the minor leagues, don't you teach everybody to use the whole field?" I mean, come on, give me a break. I mean, you know, there's a lot of people in the game that are running the game now that never played the game. When I was coaching and when I was in the minor leagues and when I was a pitcher, it was all people that had played the game, and most of them had been in the big leagues or had played the game a long time. So, yeah, I don't think it's as good now because the fundamentals, this is just how the strikeouts are ridiculous. You know, the how far you can hit it is, you know, it's just it's a different game. But I had somebody say, "We think your guys could pitch in today's era?" I said, "What?" I said, "We'd never give up a run." But, you know, if that's the way to, you know, I mean, I still love watching the games, and especially when the money's on the line. You know, I love watching them. Or that's why I like Soroka so much. Move the ball around, change speeds. Looks like he's hardly working when he's out there pitching. You know, it's stuff like that. But I don't like the square in the strike zone. How about this? Watching those games, those World Series games that the Fox Sports South has put on for everybody, and the old TBS games, which TBS to me was one of the most wonderful things that ever happened to me in my career. No analytics, just calling the game, talking about baseball. Joe Morgan or a Jim Palmer or Bob Uecker or Al Michaels or a Bob Costas broadcasting the game of baseball. And they're talking about the game of baseball. They're not talking about that ball got out at 97 miles an hour with an arrow drawn here and the strike zone here and this, that. I can't stand it. I don't like it. You know, I know it's part of the game now, but and there is and please don't get me wrong, there is a part of the game for analytics. But you can't eliminate what we just described for the last couple hours, because it doesn't matter if you can't command a fastball for a pitcher. The game has never changed. If you can't throw a good fastball as a pitcher and command it, and a hitter can't hit a good fastball, you're in trouble.
It's kind of like being a good jazz musician or something like that. I can hit all the keys, but if I don't have feel, you can tell. And I think just being able to hit the numbers, if you're all mechanical and you don't have feel for the game, I think you can tell, and you're not going to be as successful.
Right. And speaking of mechanical, you know, we work on mechanics all the time, good, proper mechanics for delivering a pitch. But here's what we had too. Once the game starts, mechanics stop. Now it's about getting somebody out, about making pitches. But when we're down in the bullpen, our number one priority is making our pitch. Now, if there's a mechanical adjustment to be made to make our pitch more consistent, we will make that adjustment in the bullpen. Okay? And then once the game starts, mechanics stop.
I think pitchers get crippled sometimes by that, or use it as a crutch. I mean, sometimes it's an excuse like, "Oh, it was my mechanics," when you weren't competing out there. So there's a time to just switch on and be a competitor, is what you're saying.
Well, what I'm saying is that you can't be thinking about your mechanics when you're trying to get somebody out.
Yeah.
You're trying to make pitches, and that's called focus. That's locking in on what you're supposed to do. And if you've done well in your side sessions with your mechanics, ain't nothing going to go haywire. Here's where mechanics go haywire. If you start to overthrow, here's where they go haywire. At some point in time, and I tell this to kids, college kids, professional pitchers, you're going to face some adversity in the game. At some point in time, you're going to face adversity in the game. If you resort to super power or you resort to super control, you're not going to have any damage control. You're going to get knocked out. Super power is going to get you up in the zone. You raise the risk of arm injury. That super control is going to get you behind in the count. So both those things don't add up. Then you're going to try to blow to get out of this trouble. Now you haven't raised the risk of arm injury, and now you don't have like a damage control inning. Giving up one, you're giving up 3 or 4, and you're gone. So you have to impress on them that sneaky quick is much more important with location than super power without it.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where, so today's analytics, it can tell you a lot of things, but it doesn't tell you deception and kind of that sneaky quick thing. It may tell you spin rate and stuff like that, but it still can't really measure deception of mechanics and stuff. The only thing you can tell is how the hitter reacts.
Right. Yeah. Well, they used to tell us that, hitter's going to tell you when a reaction hitter's going to tell you how good your pitch is. But, in other words, the deception on Glavin's changeup is unbelievable. You can't see any difference in a fastball and a changeup with his arm speed at all. And what I like on spins is standing behind the pitcher and make sure that a 4-seam backspin is consistent. Make sure that a 2-seam over the top spin is consistent. Make sure that changing the direction of the ball for a breaking ball is consistent, the spin. Changeups, the consistency of the spin. So that's what I look for. I want the spins to be the same. In other words, I don't want a pitcher coming to me and the ball cut, right? Say the ball cut. And I always ask them, did you do that on purpose? No. Well, then that means it's only going to be a 50-50 pitch. Let's find out why it cut. And if you want to cut one, let's cut that one on a regular basis or straight on a regular basis. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And those are spins.
Rob, I'll just interject a little bit. I think, we have Rapsodo in our indoor facility for our pitchers. And I think what Leo said right there, that's how you use that stuff, in my opinion, is it uses it as a supplement to teach what you're already teaching. When a kid bogs down, just like, hey, let's figure out why. I mean, why is the biggest thing. So many coaches coach with the what without the why, and so there's no how, and kids just get all they see is numbers, spin rates, axis, all this stuff, and it's just they kind of get bogged down a little bit. But when I could tell them, all right, well, that one cut, but we didn't want it to. Well, here's why. So now we can figure out, now maybe we shape a pitch or we just move on from it and figure out how to prevent it moving forward, but we don't coach our whole session on a computer screen. And I think that's a big thing for us.
I think that's a great point. I think too many coaches, it ends up being a crutch. You don't ask the why, and you're afraid to be asked the why. So it's a lot of coaches, they want to dictate things, but they're afraid to actually have a conversation with a pitcher and get challenged. Sometimes a pitcher will say, hey, why are we doing this?
Sure. And I'll tell my guys at the beginning of the fall, even my recruits, I say the biggest thing that you can do for me as a player is ask me why. Because if I can't explain it to you, then you shouldn't expect to be able to do it. And like I tell my guys all the time, listen, when you come in, I have expectations for you. You should have expectations for me as your coach as well. And so, if kids aren't asking why, then I'll start asking them why they aren't asking why. There's no way you understand everything that I'm saying all the time, 100% of the time, because I'm not that good. I'm going to mess something up, mess the wording of something up, and I need you to, second guess it. Ask me why and help me explain it. This stuff that we do right here even helps me understand what I'm doing just talking about it. And so when you can talk about it with a player, again, and listen to what they're having to say and their concerns with it, then you can start seeing the ice get broke a little bit and the development starts to happen right in front of you.
And they're taking ownership of their own career. Same thing we were talking about earlier with calling pitches and stuff. If a pitcher takes ownership of development and their game plan, then you're going to be successful. If they're if they have it dictated to them, I think you're going to be less successful.
I agree. I mean, some of this stuff that I see calling pitches. I want to give you one about calling pitches. I'll give you an example. I love, like Kaleb said, the why. One time we had a game against Cincinnati. So Maddox and I are in the dugout before he's going out to warm up. He goes, okay, Leo, question for you. He used to do this to me all the time. Game's on the line. Who do I pitch to, Reggie Sanders or Willie Green? Reggie Sanders is right-handed. Willie Green's a switch here. He's going to hit left-handed. And I looked at him and I said, Willie Green. He goes, why? And I said, Reggie Sanders he says, because Reggie Sanders swings and misses a lot, Leo. I said, yeah, but he swings and misses a lot on pitchers that pitch north and south. I said, you pitch east and west. I said, and Reggie Sanders can't hit your comebacker, he can't hit your sinker, he can't hit your changeup, he can't hit your cutter. I said, does that answer your question? He goes, yeah. And so he asked another coach the same thing. He goes, oh, do whatever you want. Well, he didn't, he didn't like that, We're going down the bullpen. I said, hey, who did you pick? Who did you pick? He goes, Willie Green. The other thing was this pitch, calling pitches. Number one, I never called one pitch in my life, whether it was the minor leagues or the big leagues, or when I was pitching, nobody ever called a pitch for me in my life. I'm calling my game, okay? but there's times when you need some help. But I can't believe what, I saw a game. I'm sitting in the dugout, and I was looking over at the other side in a particular college game, and there's these 3 signs up. They're putting cards up in the dugout. Each card has a number on it. And then I see the pitcher look into the dugout and look at the cards, then look on his wrist, and then throw the pitch. And I said, you got to be kidding me. I'm also seeing now in the big leagues, catchers with wristbands on, pulling their sleeve up and looking at those bands while pitch calling pitches. And I'm thinking, you got to be kidding me, what's going on, and I think that's totally ridiculous. And that's when analytics goes too far. That's when all that BS goes too far. You got to have a feel for that. All should have been taken care of in your team meetings prior to the games and taken care of with what you were executing in the bullpen on your side sessions. And that should be taken care of. And you should know what you want to throw and what you don't want to throw. You should not have to look at a wristband or look at a card in a dugout and figure out what do you want to throw. You shouldn't have to look on your wristband and say, where do I play this guy? Give me a break. That's all taken care of prior to the game.
I was laughing. Speaking of analytics, I remember from Pedro's book, him talking about they gave him a big book of analytics saying, this is why we're going to pay you this much. This is what you've done. This is what, and he said, it doesn't tell you that I had a heart of a lion, that we're not just robots out there. We actually compete. We're faced with all this stuff. And that's where the rubber meets the road. You can have all these analytics sometimes, but you don't have the feel for it.
Yeah, no question about it. I think that, and there's another pitcher I like Verlander a lot too, and I think that he kind of fits that same mold that you're talking about.
You have any Marvin Freeman stories? Because Marvin's going to probably watch this. He's big on Twitter.
Who, Marvin?
Yeah.
Marvin was great. He had a great sinker, and it turned into he turned into one of the better setup men that helped us a great deal to get us to the postseason. I love being around Marvin. He was a good humor guy, had nasty stuff, and had a nasty arm angle, and he could make the bottom fall out of that thing. And we had a lot of fun together. We laughed like crazy. And he does a good job now coaching himself.
Why aren't you coaching? You can still coach. It sounds like you still got that passion.
Nobody, everybody's too intimidated. Yes,
Well, that goes back to Johnny saying.
One time I asked John Sherholtz, I said, how come nobody wants to knock down my door? And he said, Leo, I said, did I do something wrong? He goes, no, you didn't do anything wrong. He said, I'm going to tell you why. He says, an organization is going to call you and say, we want you to come in. Here's what we want you to do. And he says, I know who you are and what you're like. He said, and you're going to say, well, if you're bringing me in, we're going to do what I want to do. He said, and they're not going to do that. So that's, if that's the way they want, I mean, I'm fine with, I accomplished everything that I wanted to accomplish in the game and got to realize all my childhood dreams. So,
Leo, I want you to talk, you and I have talked a lot about this, but I want you to hit on pitch count for a second. I know you and I talk a lot about what high pitch count is, what it isn't,
Right.
Rest pitching being the big indicator of it, and then, of course, you keeping your own pitch count.
Well, the bottom line is that Bobby Cox and I had a max out inning. We called it a max out inning. And so the max out inning was that if pitcher was going out to the mound in, say, the 6th or 7th, he was going to max out his effort, then he was done after that inning, regardless of the pitch count. And if he wasn't going to max out his effort, then he wasn't done, regardless of the pitch count. So therefore, the pitch count was something that wasn't as important as maxing out your effort during the game. And that's what people have to understand when it comes to this pitch count number. And before the pitch counts went up on the wall, I should cheat on my clicker a little bit, I mean, having to throw a first pitch change up, the guy pop it up. I said, I ain't counting that, So it got to be a joke with Bob. He goes, Leo, how many has he got? And I'd tell him the number, and he goes, is that the real number or is it yours? And I said, no, that's the real number. Of course, Anyway, so our pitch counts, we kept them, but that didn't determine who was taking how long the guy was going to pitch. It was the max out inning, or how hard was it to get through 5 or 6, or did he get through it in easy fashion? Did he have to pitch out of jams? All this you take into account. You're just going to say, well, he's got 100 pitches now, I got to take him out, And so that never happened where we were, and with the manager making the pitchers the first class citizens of your club, that made my job easier too, because there's a lot of managers that just doesn't happen. I said, and I have it with Bobby Cox, and Kaleb has it with Coach Harker.
So what else goes into that? I'm curious. I love that philosophy of pitchers being first-class citizens. What other things go into that in the way you treat?
Well,
pitchers?
what first-class citizens are this? You go to spring training, right? No pitchers don't have to shag. No shagging. You do your work, you do your running, you get done, you're done. Go on, leave the park. Okay, you're rewarded for doing everything in an efficient manner and doing it the right way. And if they know they can get out of there in the right way and play a little golf, they're going to do it right. And so, in other words, I heard managers when I was on clubs that said, "Get the pitchers out of the way so we can get some work done around here. Get those knuckleheads on field too," or And I'd sit there and go, well, that's a lousy way to approach that. Number one, we're not knuckleheads, and number two, why you want to get us out of the way? Because you get us out of the way, you ain't winning. And you know what? Those managers that said that never won. They never won. And I studied the game of history of the game. I'm going to tell you that they never won. But Bobby Cox, when he come in and says, "I'm making pitching the top priority, we're going to turn an offensive-oriented organization into a pitching one." And then so there's no shagging, there's no eyewash. You know what eyewash is? Well, we're working hard. Look at all of them. They're sitting out there, standing out there at the yards 2 hours ago. You know what you do when you stand out there and shag? You ache like the son of a gun. You get stiff as a board. You feel like crap, and you're just sitting there. Once you get your work done, you're done. Why does there have to be a time on it? So that's what that other stuff's a joke. How about running everybody in the ground, then putting them on the mound after that? That's a joke. You got to have them pitch off the mound before you do any type of running program. And then they used to say to me, "How many you want us to run?" I said, "Just run it up. How much you think you should run?" And I said, "Don't cheat yourself."
Get him, Kaleb. What's another one, Kaleb? Get him.
No. I wanted him to get on that because I knew that was going to get him. But we do the same thing. I mean, we talk about it all the time. It's just, if a guy doesn't pitch out of the stretch for 4 straight innings, but his pitch count, what? I'm not pulling him, But there's such a big difference between, constantly pitching with a guy on second and pitching out of the windup with nobody on base. Your pitch counts could be the same, but your exertion's completely different. So I just think you got to be mindful of those things. There's so many things other than just, it's not so always black and white. Here's the number. This is where he's at. It's just not the case. You got to be able to watch the game and be a student of the game. And so, Leo taught me that. Before I met Leo, I was, all right, click, and this is where we're at. So he must be tired. Let's get him out of there. Rather than watching the game and paying attention. It's one reason why, I keep my own pitching chart just so I don't give that to anybody else. I do that just so I can make sure I know where my guys are. It's my little clicker, but on paper.
Love it. Rob, you got anything more?
Oh, I think this has been great.
Right.
This is fantastic.
It's been awesome. I appreciate you guys having me on. I really do. It's I love talking baseball. I love talking pitching, and it was my whole life from the time I was 9 years old. So and to be able to realize all your childhood dreams was a wonderful career. So thanks.
I want to share a story with you real quick because everybody, the accolades you have and everything's all about pitching in Major League Baseball. So I just want to share a quick story with you before you go. My dad, the first memory I have with my dad actually was, I don't know, I must have been like 4. And I don't remember. I just know we were staying up late. He and my mom were divorced, and he always let me stay up late to watch baseball games. And we always watched the Braves on TBS. He was really sick. I knew he was terminally sick for a long time. And he spent really everything that he had left on trying to create memories with his kids. And I remember that the common bond between us was the Braves. And that was because of how good you guys were, and you were on TV, and you were obviously a big part of that. And he ended up dying a couple years after you guys had won the World Series. But to this day, when I think about my father, I think about standing literally like on top of your dugout in '95 when you guys won the World Series. And I think I'm just one of tens of thousands of kids out there who, what you did had nothing to do with baseball. It was a father-son relationship builder,
Right.
and bond, and something that, like, my dad's in the grave, but that's what I remember. I have a thing of our pictures from the World Series in '92 and in '95, and our ticket stubs, and following you to the Marlins, and all of that stuff. I mean, what you guys did was so far beyond baseball for a lot of us, and I want to say thank you for that personally, and I think that hopefully you know that it goes way beyond baseball.
Well, I do everywhere I've gone. The people that the accolades that everybody got. Everybody, TBS was wonderful. It brought us in everybody's home, and my dad's in his grave too, and he's got a Braves uniform top on. Yeah. But he get in the car and go wherever, just drive wherever we were playing, And he coached me from Little League up through Pony League, American Legion ball, semi-pro ball, and got off work at the paper mill and would come down and catch me every night at the ballpark.
Well, I thank you for that. And Kaleb, thanks so much, man, for making this happen, being the brains behind it all, as your buddy said, made sure everybody knew on Twitter. So
Y'all got me tearing up and stuff, man. Josh.
Yeah, that's the goal, is to get right.
Yeah, thanks, man.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys.
Take care.
Take care.